Chapter 20. Devon and I found time to go for a run Saturday morning. We'd talked about it for a week or more, but he was always too tired to go in the evening, so we waited until we both had a morning off. The plan was for Devon to run normally on two legs, and I would run as a wolf. This meant we had to go rural, but we had that handled. Devon liked to run uphill, at least sometimes, a leftover from his military days. We decided to run up the road on Mount Graham. Well, he would run up the road and I would mostly run beside him, but if we encountered a vehicle, I could take off into the trees and avoid being seen. At 7 a.m., we climbed into his old pickup and headed up to the mountain. We stopped at the first picnic area and parked the truck. He got out and started stretching, working on loosening his muscles so he wouldn't pull anything. I got out on my side, which luckily was on the far side from the road, and stripped. I folded my clothes neatly and set them in the bag I had brought for them. I didn't want someone to pull up and see a pile of clothes on the seat. That would raise questions. Once my clothes were off, I put the bag on the floorboard and closed the door. Then I bent down to shift. It only took a moment to feel the tingling, and in another minute or two, it passed. In wolf form, I walked around to the driver's side and looked up at Devon. I wondered briefly if it would work before projecting. "You ready?" "Sure, let's get started." He walked out to the side of the highway where it stretched up the mountain and curved not far ahead. He started at a light jog and I padded along beside him, then he sped up and I had to trot to keep up. "You call this a workout?" I taunted. "It will be when we keep it up for 5 miles or more." "Okay, you got me there. I'm not used to distance." "You'll get used to it. You need stamina and endurance, not just speed," he said. He probably knew what he was talking about. Devon might not shift, but he grew up among the kindred. He still knew more about what I was than I did. I heard a car behind us and sent to Devon, "Car, I'll hide. You keep going, I'll catch up." I darted into the forest and found a hollow to lay in where I couldn't be seen, and I waited until the car passed. I waited a few moments longer until I was sure it was the only one, before getting up and heading for the road, angling uphill so I would come out further up the road than I had gone in. Hopefully closer to where Devon had made it to by now. It didn't occur to me until I reached the road. How would I know if Devon had been here or not? Was he in front of me or behind me? I stood for a minute or two, looking one direction and then the other, trying to decide what to do. Then it dawned on me. I could look for his scent. That would tell me if he had been here yet. I tentatively bent and sniffed the pavement, not sure it would work. I was going to try anyway, especially since there was no one here to see how ridiculous I looked. I put my nose to the pavement and took a deep breath, thinking to pick up as much scent as possible. I overwhelmed my nose. The scents of tar and rubber were so strong they burned the inside of my nose, and I spent several more minutes snorting, trying to blow the strong odors out so I could try again. The second time I tried, I was more careful. I held my nose above the pavement and took short, careful sniffs, trying to peel back the layers of scent. There was rubber from the tires that regularly drove here, and the scent of warm oil and coolant from the car that had just passed by, but under that I caught Devon's smoky personal scent, the faint scent of pack that he still carried, and the stronger scent of sweat. Now that I knew he had been here, I turned and ran up the mountain. I loved the feel of the wind in my face, blowing my ears back. I ran up mountain, maybe a quarter of a mile. My confusion and scenting error had given him time gain more distance than I'd expected. I rounded the next curve at a dead run and found him just up ahead, maybe 200 yards. I slowed as I approached, and fell into the steady jogging pace he was keeping. "So, how far have you made it?" I asked. "You haven't been keeping track?" "Nah, I cut across off-road, more ups and downs, more fun, less boring." "It's not boring. It gives you time to think about other things." "Boring?" I intoned with a mental laugh. "It's been about 1.5 miles, you still have a while to go," he laughed in response. "I can make it more entertaining." "Oh really? How?" You keep your same pace and I'll run circles around you. Well, duh, we know you're faster than me. You could beat me easily. I didn't mean I would beat you. I sped up and started circling his still running body. I said I would run circles around you. Show off, he said, laughter in his voice. The warm timbre of his laugh sent curls of contentment through me. Making someone laugh had never felt so good. I stopped circling him and started investigating the scents around us. I caught the scents of the cars that regularly drove up and down the mountain, the squirrels and chipmunks that regularly crossed the road, and the occasional deer that roamed through the area. I picked up my head and noticed Devon had made it quite a distance. I caught up with Devon, who had kept going as if I hadn't stopped. Having fun? He asked. His breathing was slightly labored, not enough to keep him from talking. I was investigating the scents. Find anything interesting? Meh, lots of cars, squirrels, chipmunks, even a deer. Interesting? Sure. Exciting? No. I'm sorry. No big deal. Just thought I'd see what I could pick up. I'm still learning to identify a lot. We continued up the mountain in silence. I noticed his usually slight limp become more pronounced the further we ran up the mountain. That leg is really bothering you, isn't it? He was starting to lose control of his breathing. He was almost gasping for air, but I couldn't tell if it was from exercise or pain. Don't try to talk, just think your responses and I'll try to pick them up. I promise not to nose around in there. Okay, I heard his voice in my head. I'll try. Yeah, it's bothering me more than I thought it would. How long's it been since you went running? A couple days. I run all the time. Uphill is another story. I haven't run long distance uphill since before the accident. I don't want to suggest that you aren't capable, but I think it's best if I go back and bring the truck to you, instead of trying to get you back to it. You're probably right, he admitted. But can you drive a standard? Police, I grew up driving farm equipment. Dad made me learn to drive a standard before I was allowed an automatic. He used to tell us any monkey could drive an automatic. I can drive a standard. Okay, I believe you. It's just so few can these days, even men. This is true. Did you lock it? I asked. Yeah, but it's old enough it has a key. There's a spare in a magnetic box attached to the back of the rear license plate. You have to reach under the bumper and around to the top of the plate. It should be resting on a ledge there, he explained. Great. It shouldn't take me long to get back to the truck and change, and even less time to get back here. I should be back in 10 or 15 minutes. That's fine, he said. It'd be best if you kept moving but not running until I get back. Walk around and stretch again. I don't want you to get too stiff before I get back. It's going to be bad enough by the time we get home. I know. I'll keep moving. Now go. I ran down the straight stretches of the road, but when the road would switch back on itself, I would cut across country and make the trip shorter. I had to duck and hide a couple times as vehicles passed, but soon made it back to the picnic area where we'd parked his truck. I had just reached the truck when I realized I had to shift and get the key before I could unlock the door and get dressed. Kneeling naked on the gravel was not going to be fun. I listened carefully, making sure no cars were coming before I shifted. I quickly went to the rear of the truck and got on my knees and reached under the bumper. The rough gravel dug into my skin while I felt around. I found the small box, tugged it free, and went back around to the passenger's side of the truck, away from the highway so if someone came by it wouldn't be obvious I was naked. I opened the box, removed the key, and went to the door to discover that there was no exterior lock on the passenger's door. Shit. I was going to have to go around to the driver's side, still naked, to unlock the truck. Once more I listened for the sounds of cars on the road before hurrying to the driver's side and unlocking the door. Just as I got the door unlocked, I heard a car approach, so I opened the door and climbed in, pulling the door closed behind me. I stretched across the seat, grabbing the bag with my clothes in it and pulling out my shirt. I slid it on over my head as quickly as I could, so nothing would appear out of place to anyone passing by. Once I had my shirt on, I pulled the bag closer and dug out the rest of my clothes. As soon as the car passed, I turned sideways and slid on my underwear and shorts. Not bothering with shoes, I started the truck and pulled it out onto the highway to pick up Devon. Soon, I was pulling alongside where Devon was standing, leaning against the rocks that had been cut away to make the road. I stopped the truck and hit the button on the driver's door to unlock other side. He climbed in and I started forward again. The road was too narrow to turn around. We'd have to continue up to either the next picnic area or a pullout. Obviously you found the key. Did you have any trouble? He settled into his seat and buckled his seatbelt. No, it was right where you said, I replied. But those rocks are sharp, especially when you have no clothes on. That occurred to me just after you left. Your clothes were locked in the truck and you needed your hands to get to the key, he chuckled. Not to mention that the passenger door doesn't unlock from the outside. Oh shit. I totally forgot about that. Thankfully, I have superior hearing and could tell when someone was coming. I was able to open the door without being spotted. Oh, to have seen that, Devon said with a wistful tone. I took one hand off the wheel long enough reach over and smack him with the back of it. What? He asked innocently. You know what? I kept my eyes on the road. You want to go on up to the top, see what the lake looks like? Or do you want to go back down and rest, maybe take a dip in the hot tub and see if that helps your leg? I'd like to go on up and at least get a look at the lake. I haven't been up there in years. Then we can go back down and I can try the hot tub. I haven't been in there yet, and it will probably help. Up it is. Do you want me to drive? I've got it, unless you want to? I don't mind. Onward and upward. We drove the rest of the way up to the mountain to see Riggs Lake. It was almost full from rains and snowmelt. When we got out of the truck, it was nice and cool out. It occurred to me this would be a nice place to go for a weekend this summer. I'd have to see if I could find someone to come with me. We didn't stay long. Devon looked around a little. We discussed some of the changes over the last 10 years. The boat ramp had been rebuilt, but the old one had been 30 years old. It was overdue for replacing. There were a few new picnic areas and camping spots around the edge of the lake, but not much else. It would be a great place to spend a couple days, and maybe be able to shift without being seen. That would depend on how many people were around. We got back into the truck and started down the mountain. I offered to give Devon his key back so he could drive, but he told me to keep driving. His leg was stiffening, and it would make it difficult to drive the old Standard. The descent off the mountain always seems to be faster to me than the climb. I'm not sure why. Soon we were almost to town, and before I headed straight home, I turned to Devon. Do you need to stop anywhere before we go home? Let's get some takeout, he said. You have to be hungry after shifting, and since you were kind enough to drive me up to see the lake, it has been a while. You have to be about ready to gnaw my arm off. Not quite. I knew I would be shifting and ate a large breakfast to be ready, I laughed. Learning a few tricks, huh? Still, let's get something to eat. Once we get back to the complex, I can change and get in the hot tub. That works. What do you want to eat? I don't care. What sounds good to you? How about we hit the buffet at Super Walk? Or would you rather pick something up and take it home? Super Walk is one of my favorites. Let's do that. I had no trouble maneuvering the truck through town, though before the picnic area, it had been a while since I'd driven a standard transmission. I pulled into the small parking lot of the old family-owned restaurant and parked. How's the leg? I asked. It's fine just sitting here, but ask again after I get out and walk on it. I killed the engine and grabbed my purse before climbing out. I locked the door and tucked the key into my pocket, knowing that if he didn't want to drive after the lake, then Devon wouldn't want to after walking through a buffet either. We went inside, where we were both recognized by the staff because apparently Devon was a regular too. The place was almost empty. There were some advantages to coming in at odd hours. They told us to sit wherever we chose and asked if we wanted our usual. "Yes, please," I replied, while Devon smiled and nodded. I chose a table near the buffet, thinking Devon wouldn't have to walk as far to fill his plate. We sat down and waited a few minutes while the waiter brought us clean plates and drinks. I noticed Devon's usual was the same iced tea I had. I left my purse in the seat, I would be able to see it the whole time, and grabbed a plate and got up. Devon spun in his seat and groaned as he tried to stand. "Is it bad?" I asked. It wasn't bad before we spent the last hour in the truck, but it's stiffened up and isn't liking having to move again. Would an over-the-counter painkiller help? I think I have some in my purse. Not enough to make a difference. I just need to move around and loosen up the muscles. I held out one hand, offering to pull him up, but he waved it off and pushed himself up using the table and back of the booth for leverage. Once on his feet, he grabbed a plate off the stack on the table. We circled the buffet, each taking what we wanted before sitting back down. "Will the hot tub help?" I asked. "It will, but I'll still be sore." "I hope you don't mind, but I asked Alexis if there was anything she could do to help." "You mean like heal me?" "Yeah, that's what I meant." "She can't." "I already know that, but thanks for the thought." That's what she said, but she also recommended a couple of things that might help with the pain and help your muscles rebuild themselves. Since she can't use her skills to do it. "What did she suggest?" He seemed curious. "Heat and ice, but ice only when there's swelling. Deep tissue massage. She's had me doing some of that with a couple of patients. They heal fast, but some not as fast as others, and the massage helps some. But I'll warn you, deep tissue massage is not relaxing. It digs in and works those healing muscles. It can be painful during the actual massage. It's not until it's over that you really notice the benefits. I've had a few of those massages and they do help, but when I came back I knew there was no place to get them without making the trip into Tucson or Phoenix. I decided coming home was more important. "I understand. If you could get them here, would you?" "Are you offering?" "Possibly," I gave him a mischievous smile. "Some days you irritate me enough I want to hurt you. Why not do it in a way that benefits you?" "Yeah, that would do it for you. Find a way to hurt me that I'll ask you for," he laughed. We finished eating, paid the tab, and went home. I gathered my stuff, put the key back into the lockbox, and put the box back where I had found it. I walked beside Devon toward his apartment. Just before we made it to his door, he broke the silence. "Are you going to join me in the hot tub? Do you want company? I thought you wanted to suffer in solitude." "Join me? If I didn't get to see you retrieve the key and unlock the truck, at least I can see you in a swimsuit." I acted like I was going to push him for reminding me of having to unlock the truck naked, but I didn't do it. I was afraid with his leg that I might hurt him. I sighed. "I guess. Give me a few minutes to change and grab a towel, then I'll be down." I left him as he pressed his thumb to the panel to unlock his door and went up to my apartment. I wondered on my way up which suit I should wear. I ended up wearing a two-piece halter suit. It wasn't my most revealing, but I wasn't looking to impress some new guy. I was hanging out around the pool with a friend. I pulled on a light cover-up, grabbed a towel, and headed back down. When I arrived at the fenced-in pool area, it was empty. I let myself in the gate, set my towel on the foot of a nearby chaise, and took off my cover-up. Draping that over the foot of the chair too, I stepped down the first few steps at the shallow end of the pool before I dove forward and swam across the pool. When I reached the deep end, I moved to one side and started swimming back and forth across the deeper water. I didn't pay attention to what was going on outside the pool as I swam from one side to the other and flipped over before making the return trip, slowly counting in my head each trip. I was coming up to the edge when I noticed movement beside the pool. Instead of turning and making another lap, I stopped at the edge and stood. I put one hand on the edge and dipped my head back until only my face was above the water. When I picked my head back up, my hair was slicked back out of the way. I treaded water while I used both hands to wipe the water from my face and eyes, then looked up to see Devon standing there. He was wearing the same pair of trunks he'd worn the week before, with a towel slung over one shoulder. A long scar started high enough on his thigh that the edge was barely visible under the shorts. It extended down past his knee. "Been here long?" He looked down at me. "Not long, I've only managed 12 laps." "Only 12, huh?" He laughed. I pulled myself up on the edge and climbed out of the pool. I swim quickly these days. "You ready for the hot tub?" More than. It was a bit difficult to get out of my running pants and into these. My knee didn't want to bend enough to do either. "Then let's go." I picked up my things and motioned him to the hot tub in the corner. "Bubbles or no bubbles?" "Bubbles, the jets massage my leg if I position it right." "I'll turn them on." I set the timer for 20 minutes. If we wanted more, I would get out and reset it. Devon used the rail and stairs to carefully step into the warm water. He sat turned sideways on the ledge surrounding the small pool. He slid along the side until he reached a jet that he could get to hit the right spot. I stepped into the water and walked across the pool until I found a spot where I could see Devon's face while we talked. "Looks like that feels good." I sat in front of a jet of my own, letting the pulsing air work the muscles in my back. "It does, the heat of the water helps too." "Why don't we let it relax you for a while, and then you can lie on one of those lounge chairs, and I'll see if I can work the muscle a bit for you." "I'm in, as long as you don't mind. Fair warning, I'm not a good patient. I whine and complain, and I'm a general pain in the ass." "That makes you different from every man I've ever known, how?" I said. "Seriously though, I don't mind. We might find it helps you move better, or at least easier." We stayed in the hot tub chatting about our families and people we knew until the jets shut off, then we climbed out. I laid one of the chaise lounges flat and had Devon lay face down on it while I moved around so I could reach his right thigh. I sat on the edge of the chair next to his, but I pulled it close so I didn't have to kneel on the cement. I started with his calf, trying to ease him into the painful massage and give him a chance to relax before I got to the worst of it. I needed the overworked muscles that compensated for the weaker muscles above them, digging my fingers deep and working my way up this leg until I was kneading the muscles in his thigh with my knuckles to loosen them. I ignored the flinches and whimpers when I found a particularly sore spot because I knew despite the pain it would help. I had been working for 45 minutes before Devon stopped me. Uncle, he said. "I can't take any more. Let's have another session in the hot tub." "I'll be there in a few minutes, let me get a few laps in." I started the bubbles for him, then went to the pool. I slipped in and started swimming the length of the pool. I counted 10 lengths before I quit. I smoothed my hair from my face and wiped the water from my eyes and joined Devon in the much warmer water. "That feels good," I settled in across from him, enjoying the jets as they beat against my muscles. "Yeah, it does. I'm glad I'm off tomorrow. It's going to be slow getting started in the morning." "I'm sorry I talked you into something that hurt." "Nah, not your fault. I would be fine if it wasn't for the uphill. It didn't occur to me not to try it for such a long distance." "If you need anything, let me know. I can pick up anything you need while I'm running errands, or I can make dinner for us both, if it would help." "I may take you up on that. I'll pop one of my muscle relaxers before bed tonight. I hate to take them, they blur my mind, but if I don't, I won't sleep." Tomorrow, I'll take it easy, stretch but not overdo it, and Monday morning I should be able to go to work without hurting too bad. Good luck. I wasn't sure he'd manage it that easily, but then, he knew his body better than I did. You need anything tonight? Nah, I'm gonna stay here a little longer. When the jets shut off, I'll head in, take a quick shower, and have a quiet evening. I finally had internet turned on, so I might find a film or just surf until I crash. Sounds good, I have some messages to answer. I'm going to go on up and do that. If you need anything, call. I'd say come up if you want, but I don't think the stairs are a good idea. For once, I'm glad my apartment is on the ground. Most of the time, I don't care much for the noise. Tonight I'm happy I don't have to climb to get home. I'm sure. Have a good night. You too, he said. I wrapped my towel around me and tossed my cover up over one shoulder. I was energized as I climbed the stairs. Today may have been too much for Devon, but it made me feel great. I went inside and stripped my wet swimsuit off as soon as the door was closed so I didn't drip through the apartment, then carried it into my bathroom and dropped it into the sink to hang up after my shower. Once clean, I put on a light summer dress with spaghetti straps and a flowing skirt that just brushed the tops of my knees. I turned on my screen and pulled the keyboard out of a drawer. I spent an hour answering messages and the rest of the evening on the net, researching deep tissue massage, the different techniques and benefits to it.